Good morning, everyone. Today is March 15th, 2022, and it is a leap year on the Hebrew calendar. So today is the 12th day of Adar 2. So in the Hebrew calendar, um, during a leap year, we get 13 months, and we have been fortunate enough to get 2 months of Adar. So this is a 12 Adar 2, 5782. So we've got a lot of ground to cover today. Um, Now, usually my podcasts and videos are around an hour long, but there's so much to go through that might be a little longer than that. So let's get started. It's a beautiful day here in Western North Carolina, and I'm having coffee in the beautiful cup that my awesome son-in-law and my youngest beautiful daughter got for me for Christmas a couple of years ago. Uh, they, my son-in-law, he's like the best in the world. I think I'd have to, be in a lifelong argument with anybody trying to say theirs is better than mine because he is a wonderful father, very loving to his wife and his daughter, and such a hard worker. I've never seen anyone be willing to work as hard as he does. Now, my two ex-husbands, they were good hard workers and they still are, but he outdoes them both. He reminds me so much of my mother and my grandfather about how devoted he is to make sure that he's at work and, braving the weather, whether it's ice or snow, how deep it is, he's going anyway. Um, and even so that I wouldn't even attempt, I'm like, yeah, no, I ain't going. He'll go anyway. He doesn't care. Um, he's uh, the only times that I've known of him to be out of work was when my daughter had the coronavirus and we were all quarantined. So naturally, he was not allowed to go. And of course, he was out when, well, no, actually, he got to work during the shutdown because his job was considered an essential job. So he was able to continue working. Um, and my daughter, she's a devoted wife and mother, and they're just the best. um, and so, anyways, and my granddaughter's very smart. In fact, all my grandchildren are smart. I've been blessed with three wonderful children and the best eight grandchildren in the world. um, so, anyways, to go on to our um, study. Um, so, Robin D. Bullock on his 11th hour broadcast about 2 or 3 weeks ago had said that gas prices were going to fall. And that's what he was seeing. He's a prophet. And he could, so far, everything he said, I've noticed has come true. So, I need to watch him on that program. And he also is on Church International on Sundays. And um, he's on the Elijah List stream, um, also on YouTube from time to time. But anyway, so he said, so this morning, it's been about, this was posted a little over an hour ago. I came across this from Business Insider. It says Brent crude drops below $100 on hopes for Russia-Ukraine negotiations and as lockdowns in China threaten to hurt demand. Uh, Oil prices tumbled 7% Tuesday after Ukraine's Zelensky said talks with Russia are set to continue. And I also want to apologize for uh, for not being able to say some of these words correctly, mispronouncing them. That's what I was looking for. This development has brightened the prospect of a ceasefire agreement, and analysts said lockdowns in China, the world's largest oil importer, threaten to hurt demand as production in tech hub Shenzhen is affected. Oil prices pulled back a second day to below $100 a barrel Tuesday after Russia and Ukraine look set to continue diplomatic negotiations and as lockdowns in China threaten to dampen demand. Brent crude futures were down 7% at $99.18 a barrel as of 7:45 a.m. Eastern Time, breaking below $100 for the first time since February. West Texas Intermediate futures were 7.3% lower at $95.43 a barrel. Investors are eyeing developments in Russia's war with Ukraine after Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said late Monday that negotiations with Russia are set to continue on Tuesday. He also said he spoke to Israel's Prime Minister Naftali to discuss ways to end the fighting and the prospects for peace. This development has brightened the prospect of a ceasefire agreement and could pave the way for a deeper pullback in oil prices, daily FX strategist Margaret Yang said. Joe Biden is expected to meet with NATO leaders in either Brussels or Poland next Wednesday to discuss the ongoing war, according to Reuters. Another factor driving oil prices lower is lockdowns in China over its worst coronavirus outbreak in 2 years, after the country reported 5,280 new infections Tuesday. With lockdowns imposed in some key industrial cities, including the entire Jilin province and tech hub Shenzhen, concerns over potential disruption to global supply chains are growing. Jilin and Shenzhen have populations of 24 million and 17 million, respectively. China is the world's largest oil importer, so lockdowns there threaten to dent demand for crude too. The country alone accounts for a quarter of global oil imports. Therefore, its economic development tends to have an outsized impact on energy demand, Yang said. The prospect of lengthy lockdowns in Chinese cities may cast a shadow over crude oil prices in the weeks to come, she added. Companies like Toyota, Apple supplier Foxconn, and Volkswagen have been forced to suspend operations for a few days in Shenzhen, China's Silicon Valley. Jeffrey Halley, senior market analyst at Owanda, noted that Brent crude has fallen almost $40 over recent sessions, in part because of concerns around economic growth in the face of expected interest rate hikes from the Federal Reserve. Policymakers start their two-day meeting Tuesday, and the Fed is widely expected to raise interest rates by a quarter percentage point at its policy announcement Wednesday, the first hike since 2018. The technical picture for oil is now neutral, meaning it could go down or up from these levels, Sally said in a note. Any negative developments from Eastern Europe or a refusal by OPEC Plus to pump more or complete failure of the Iran nuclear deal could inspire a gigantic short squeeze. Now, the month of Adar, let's explore that for a moment, because that has a lot to do with also what's going on with um, the Gog and Magog war and this invasion. Um, so I got this information from Israel 365, um, which is the article was written, or I received it on March the 2nd in my inbox. The month of Adar, turning darkness into light. The month of Adar, let me start over again. The month of Adar Bet begins at sundown on Wednesday, so that would be March the 3rd. The, the Bible does not name the Hebrew months, but declares that the month containing the holiday of Passover, the month we refer to as Nisan, is the first month. The month preceding Nisan is Adar, and therefore, according to the biblical manner of counting months, it is the 12th and final month of the year. During a leap year, such as this year, there are 2 months of Adar Aleph and Adar Bet. So that's Adar Aleph, sorry, Adar 1 and Adar 2. Because Aleph means 1 and Bet means 2. In a leap year, the holiday of Purim, celebrated on the 14th of Adar, is celebrated in Adar Bet. Since the month of Adar contains the festive holiday of Purim, the Talmud, Tanit 29a, that's Taanit if you want to look it up, instructs to increase and enjoy the entire month. As Adar precedes Passover, it was in fact the last month the Jews spent enslaved in Egypt, making it a time of joy. We also rejoice over the salvation of the Jews from the decree of the evil Haman during the time of Purim. The central theme of the holiday of Purim is turning light into darkness, referred to as Venahafah. Sorry, I'm still getting used to my Hebrew. Um, Venahafach. That's Venahafoch. Who? Hu. Which means things turning upside down or reversing the situation in a surprising way. We're already seeing this with the oil prices, aren't we? May this Adar bring light and joy to the Jewish people and the entire world. And so, on the 13th day of the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, when the king's command and decree were to be executed, the very day on which the enemies of the Yehudim had expected to get them in their power, the opposite happened, and the Yehudim got their enemies in their power. Esther 9:1. There are 7 leap years every 19 years in the Jewish calendar cycle, and during every leap year, the month of Adar is doubled. There are 2 months of Adar, Adar Aleph and Adar Bet. In a leap year, the holiday of Purim, celebrated on the 14th of Adar, is celebrated in Adar Bet. This is precisely the opposite of the month of Av, in which Jews decrease joy to commemorate the sad events that took place in that month, most notably the destruction of both temples. Esther 9:1 is epitomized by Haman's choice of when to annihilate the Jews, which he accomplished by throwing lots. By chance, the 13th of Adar came up. Haman was thrilled, as the 7th of Adar was the day that Moses died. He assumed that the month was a dark time for the Jews. What Haman didn't know, however, was that the same 7th of Adar was also the day that Moses was born. Thus, the month that Haman thought was a time of darkness was actually a time of great joy for the Jews. During the Second Temple period, there was a Jewish custom to make a public proclamation on the first day of the lunar month of Adar, reminding the people that they are to prepare their annual monetary offering for the temple treasury, known as the half shekel. And this is some information I found on Safaria. It's about Gog and Magog. I had went to God and asked him, to um, give me a word about this, a prophetic word um, about the Russian invasion whenever it was going on. It was starting because, um, I wanted to make sure that I was praying properly. And he told me to look up Gog and Magog. So I did. And I always, even though I've read the Bible multiple times, um, I knew that there was a Gog and Magog war. But for some reason, I was thinking that Gog and Magog were going to be fighting each other at the end time. Um, but actually, it's the opposite. Um, they're going to be united, um, and with the entire world against Israel. Yes, and even the United States. So, and your country, you might be friends with Israel now, and you think, well, we'll never turn our backs on them. Yes, you will. I mean, you personally may not, but your leaders will. Um, and that can be found in the Book of Revelation. So, and when I was looking at that, I was like, well, you know, do I do I how do I pray about this? I mean, do I pray for you to stop this immediately? Because my heart goes out to these people. Um, because this might be that actual war that's going to be taking place in times. And I don't want to be asking God to stop something that's He said is um, that He's already talked about in His Word that's going to happen. And I'm saying, no, 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 don't. Don't know what you said. Because if He did, that would make Him a liar, and God's not a liar. And um, so the way that I prayed for these people was that, you know, God, if this is, I want it to stop immediately, um, but if this is the war that you've already said that's going to happen, let it continue. This is, but if it's not, if this is not set up by you, then stop it immediately. But either way, the innocent people there, um, don't let them feel any pain. You know, close their ears and those who are going to die, you know, close their ears and don't let them feel any pain from the the bomb or the bullets or however they're going to die in this. Um, and close their eyes so that they can't see anything. Close their ears so they can't hear anything. And that way, their heart is at peace and they're not fearing. They might still feel some, but and with me hearing and seeing, even though I know something's going on and it's fearful, whenever I can hear it and see it, it's so much more fearful for me. Um, so that's how I prayed. Um, so um, anyways, so I went on to Sephoria and found some information um, about Gog and Magog. And and Ezekiel 38 to 39 uh, chapters. This is where it talks about Gog and Magog in the Bible. Um, but Rashi, one of the Jewish sages, says about verse 38:4, and that verse is, "And I shall put hooks into your jaws." So Rashi says about this verse, it is customary to lead out a beast with hooks in its jaws, because it does not want to go voluntarily. I too will put thoughts into your heart, and an urge that will draw you from your land to come upon Israel. And verse 38:8, the verse says, "From many days past you will be remembered." And Rashi says, "From the many days past that you sinned against me, you will now be remembered before me, for me to remember your iniquities and to pay your recompense. And I shall entice you at the end of years into coming to the land of Israel. Return from the sword, whose inhabitants return from the exile wherein they have been exiled by the enemy's sword." And then his commentary is, "On which have been tenure laid waste. these many years, and only shortly before your coming upon them they returned. And then but it was liberated from the nations. He says, but you should have taken into consideration that it liberated from the nations, and he who liberated it from the nations will not leave it in your hands. Um, and if you want, who is Gog and Magog? So Gog is Russia, and the and Magog is, which means out of Magog, is actually uh, is is Ukraine. Well, it's not just Ukraine; it is also Poland, Belarus, Moldova. I think it was Turkey that I found. Um, I was looking for the picture that I printed out that I found online. Um, and Poland and I believe Germany. But there's like you can find it um, online. So, but anyways, it's that little area right there. And so, but they will eventually come into peace with Russia. Um, and one thing to remember is that God always, and I learned this from a book, which it's there in the Bible. If you read it from end to end, you can see what he's saying. But I never really noticed it before. But that God always makes an imprint of something before the final event happens. Um, so I feel like this is actually, an imprint. Um, so like with before Jesus came, um, there was another Messiah, um, which so I thought Messiah just means Savior. Um, and that was Joseph, um, Jacob's son. He was, he became a leader. He's the only person he wound up having to um, answer to was Pharaoh. But when that there was basically a worldwide famine, he saved basically the world, the known world at the time. Um, so he was a type of savior. And then along comes Jesus, who is also, he's the savior of the world. Um, so the and I find it kind of interesting that you know Joseph, um, who was directly under Pharaoh, he was the son of Jacob. And we go back into the genealogy of Jesus, you see that it says that Jacob had a son named Joseph, and then Joseph is the father of Jesus, which he's not the blood father; he's like his stepfather. Um, so I just so there's Jacob, Joseph, the world saved. Jacob, Joseph, Jesus who saves the world. So I just so there's that imprint, you know. Um, and there's many other instances like that in the Bible, um, where you see that there's that imprint. Um, so And this is something else that I found kind of interesting, and I tried to pin it down, and I'm new to the Jewish faith. I mean, I've been in it since 2019, um, but was trying to work, um, and the 10 services. Just I didn't get to go to all the services. So and then whenever I come out of work, um, due to my disability, um, I was so excited because now I could attend and I can learn more and know more. Well, then coronavirus happens, and so I'm basically on my own again, trying to learn this stuff. So when you think, well, 3 years you should be a lot farther along than what you are. Well, yeah, I should, but when you consider all that's happened, you know, it's really and now I'm like almost an hour away from my synagogue, and where I'm living at now, there are no synagogues, not messianic, you know, or or any type of synagogue that believes in Jesus, or just one that doesn't. Where I could, because I'm the type of person that I don't believe everything that I hear. Um, I kind of like discern it. Like I want us to. Um, and as one lady at my synagogue says, I eat the meat and spit out the bones. Because you have to be careful, when people tell you things because they can lead you astray, either intentionally or not intentionally. That's I actually want you to pray and ask God. Whenever I'm telling you things, unless I'm reading it straight out of the Bible, and that's another thing. When I go to church, I read along. I don't just listen to my pastor because they could be telling you things. Um, Like, well, the Bible says this and this book and this chapter and verse, blah, 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 blah. And if you're not right along with it, they could be telling you anything. So I want you to pray and ask God, you know, is she telling me the right thing? And I want you to have your Bible and read along with me whenever I'm reading out of it. Um, so then you know that, you know, whether or not I'm leading you astray. If I do tell you something wrong, then I want you to put it in the comments. Um, or you can email me at BibleStudyGuide101 at gmail.com and say, hey, but yeah, this you told me wrong. This is actually the truth. But then just show me the source so that I can correct it. And then I'll come back and I'll say, hey, well, wait a minute, I told you wrong. This is not my intention to lead anyone astray. But excuse me. Sorry about that. So yeah, just I said, don't take everything you hear and read um, as the truth. Uh, you know, I get my information. I don't just take the very first information that I find and say that's it. I look at other sources. Okay, is this right? Except for like this about the month of Adar, what that means. I got that from a Jewish source, so I know it's correct. Um, but uh, and like whenever I have been researching um, Exodus, uh, I found where it said that the in Egypt when Egypt was divided, that one king, I think it was the king of Egypt, the king of Upper Egypt, I believe. I might get it, I have that wrong, but anyways, I'm just gonna go ahead and say Upper Egypt just to clarify, to explain the story. Um, but anyways, the king of Upper Egypt had a bunch of hippopotamuses, and they made so much noise that it was actually disturbing the king of Lower Egypt, and that they went to war over that. Um, but I found that in so many sources, you know, that, I'm, whenever I make up that in my book, that's going to actually be part of the book. And but I will say, this is what I found here, and, whether or not that's true, I'm not exactly 100% certain, but I will note that, that I'm not certain, but I found so many sources that I found, it needs to be mentioned. Um, so, but anyways, so I looked up what Gog and Magog means according to the Gematria. Um, so if you look, the spelling of Gog in Hebrew is Gimel, Vav, Gimel. The letter Gimel means bend, and the letter Vav means support. Um, so when you take those each letter also has a numerical value. So Gimel's value is 3, and Vav's value is 6. So when you add those together, you have 3 plus 6 plus 3, which equals 12. Um, 12, the number 12 means government. Um, but you also have to take the the numbers to break it down into add them to keep adding them together until you get down to just a single number. So add 1 and 2 from the number 12, and you get 3. And I couldn't really find anything about what other than this on Habad.org that I will read to you about the meaning of the number 3. Um, then Magog is spelled um, Mem, um, Gimel, Vav, Gimel. Mem means water, and then again, Ben means, I'm sorry, Gimel means bend, Vav means support. So you've got water, bend, support, bend. And whenever you put the letter M, or the mem, which is not as an M, in front of a word or at the beginning of a word, then it means from. So you've got from Gog, and uh, Ukraine used to be a part of Russia, and those other countries might have been. I'm not exactly 100% sure. I've not done all that, gone that deep into it. So the numerical value of um, word Magog, so Mem's letter is 40. Gimel is 3. Bob is 6, and then you've got Gimel again, which is 3. If you add up 40 plus 3 plus 6 plus 3, that equals 52. And I couldn't find out what 52 meant. So then if you add 5 plus 2, you get 7. And 7 means perfection. Um, also, to write the number 12 in, in Hebrew, you put a yud, which looks like a little comma thing, and then the letter bet. So that would be YB. And sometimes the letter bet also makes a V sound. So it would be YB or YV. And to write the number 3 in Hebrew, you just write the letter Gimel. And then for the number 52, you make the letter none, and then the letter bet. So you got NB or NV. And then for 7, you write the letter Zion. And I actually found this alphabet chart online. Um, so it shows you. Uh, so like, see, here's the letter bet, and there's the letter olive, and it tells you. I'm not sure how good you can read anything on here, um, but it gives you the Egyptian hieroglyphic from 1859, and um, so this was how they wrote it, and this was actual letter sound that it made. And then this is Mosaic hieroglyphic Hebrew alphabet. So this is the way the Hebrew alphabet was written from 1859 to 550. This is all BC. Um, so um, so they would write it like this, and, and then from 1100 to 550 BC. But this one right here was 1859 to 1100 BC. This one is the Paleo Hebrew, and it's 1100 to 550 BC. And this is um, the Aramaic Hebrew from 550 BC to 70 AD, right here. And I've just added the numbers because it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then the next letter is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And then the next one is 100. Then it's 200, 300, 400. And there's 22 alphabets, or 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And this is right here is what sound that they make in English. And then the Masoretic, which is Hebrew, which is where they put the little dots and lines. And I have, I'm not learned all that yet. God told me that I need to learn it. He had me doing it just like this with no vowel sounds. But this gives you like tells you what they are and the vowel sounds, so that does the letter bet mean the sound of a B or a V. So anyways, there's that, and I just felt that by going to the Google, and then at the very top, you get on images, and it pops right up. So I have Google on my tablet, but I use Bing on my laptop because that's the default browser. And it's the same thing on Bing. You just uh, put in there um, Hebrew alphabet, click on images at the top of the page, and you'll find, just scroll down and you'll find this. There's a bunch of them, but I like this one the best because it goes so far back. So, anyway, so for the number 52, if you add 5 plus 2, you get the number 7, and the number 7 means perfection. So, from apply.org, and this is the only place I went to, I looked many different places, but this was the best thing that I could find regarding on the meaning of the number 3. And this was written by Eliezer Posner. 1 symbolizes unity, agreement, simplicity. When something exists alone and nothing disturbs it, it remains completely at peace, without regard for anything else. 2 symbolizes duality, tension, and complexity. The number 3 symbolizes a harmony that includes and synthesizes 2 opposites. The unity symbolized by the number 3 isn't accomplished by getting rid of number 2, the entity that caused the discord, and reverting to the unity symbolized by the number one. Rather, um, three merges the two to create a new entity, one that harmoniously includes both opposites. On its own, entity A leaves no room for entity B, and entity B does not allow for the existence of entity A. Entity C demonstrates how A and B really are compatible and even complementary. Bringing together two opposites, A and B, requires the introduction of an entity or common goal, C, that is greater than both of them. The first 3 days of creation serve as an example for these three stages. On the first day, life had not yet been created. At the conclusion of the first day, the Torah writes, "It was evening and it was morning, one day." Our sages comment on this verse that it was a day of one. God was the only existence. Even the angels had yet to be created. There was complete and simple unity. The second day of creation symbolizes separation and discord. On that day, God separated the waters above the heavens from the waters below the heavens. This generated the first dichotomy. Now there were two opposites, heaven and earth, spirituality and physicality. Unlike the other 5 days of creation, regarding the second day, the Torah doesn't say that God saw that it was good. When there is conflict and tension, the situation cannot be qualified as good. On the third day, God confined the waters to the seas and uncovered the dry land, which allowed for the creation of vegetation later that day. Now the light, the dark, the heaven, the earth, and the waters were all working together harmoniously to produce. On the third day, the Torah tells us that it was good twice. The third day didn't undo the separation of the first 2 days. The polarity still exists, but the polarity became part of a greater unity, and that is doubly good. When the two opposites merge and work together, the resulting unity is greater than the unity of one being on its own, because the number one symbolizes peace that is achieved by excluding all others. In a nutshell, one stands for unity, two stands for disagreement, three stands for the harmony of opposites that includes the properties of one and two. This idea of the three stages is especially common in the works of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. For examples of this concept, I recommend you read The Mathematics of Marriage, which demonstrates the three levels in marriage, our relationship with God, and the giving of the Torah. The third month family, which demonstrates that the three model of unity is the key to successful parenting. Okay. Let's see. Um, so I also went into the Strong's Concordance and to look up where um, verses about Gog and Magog. So God, this was in 1 Corinthians 5:4. I'm sorry, 1 Chronicles 5:4. It says that Gog was the son of Shemara, and it's Ezekiel 38:2-3, 14, 16, 18. Ezekiel 39:1-11, in Revelations 28, it says that Gog was a prince of Scythia. Um, and for the definition of Gog, it says that Gog is the name of an Israelite, also of some northern nation. And where is Russia? It is a northern nation. It says that Gog is also a symbolic name for some future Antichrist. Um, Magog, which is also referred to as Hamona, can be found in Ezekiel 39, 11, and 15. And that means the multitude of Gog, the fanciful name of an emblematic place in Palestine. It also says that it means a noise, tumult, crowd, also disquietude, wealth, abundance, company, many, multitude, multiply, noise, riches, rumblings, sounding, store, tumult. It also means to make a loud sound, to be in great commotion or tumult, to rage, war, moan, clamor, clamorous, concourse, cry aloud, to be disquieted, loud, mourn, be moved, make a noise, rage, roar, sound, be troubled, make a tumult, tumultuous, be in an uproar. That sound like the way that Russia is now. I mean, I'm not trying to put, be judgmental about people. I'm just, stating the obvious of what we read in the news. Um, it also means to make an uproar or agitate greatly. We see that with them, constantly threatening to start war. Destroy, move, make a noise, put, ring again, to put in commotion, to disturb, drive, destroy, break, consume, crush, destroy, discomfit, trouble, and vex. Uh, Hamona, or Hamagog, is also the place where Gog is buried. That's according to Ezekiel 39:16. Um, then Magog, so according to Genesis 10:2 and 1 Chronicles 1:5, Magog is a son of Japheth, which was one of the sons of Noah. And then Ezekiel 38:2, Ezekiel 39:6, and Revelation 28 says that Magog is a descendant. It talks about descendants of Magog. Um, the explanation is figurative as an anti-Christian party. So then I also went to my Bible, my complete Jewish study Bible, and looking up these verses um, about Gog and Magog. So Genesis 10:2 says the sons of Japhet were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Ivan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus. Now the study note um, for Ezekiel 38 verse 2 says, in that verse it's talking about turn your face toward God. Chapters 38 to 39 depict an enemy invasion of Israel, which leads to national conversion. From that day on, the house of Israel will know that I am another God. That's in verse 39, chapter 39, verse 22. This invasion consists of an alliance of nations that originate from the Black Sea area, Persia, and northern Africa. That's could be found in Ezekiel 38, 2, 5 to 6, and in Genesis 10, 2 and 6, and 1 Chronicles 1, 6. The time is the Aharat Haimim, the last days, when Israel will be gathered out of many peoples to her land, where she will live securely. That's can be found in Ezekiel 38, 8, 14, and 16. Yet the battle is described in terms of ancient warfare. That's in Ezekiel 38, 4 to 5, 15, 21, and 39, 3. And the villages of Israel as unwalled, an apparent reference to the peaceful conditions of the land. That can be found in Ezekiel 38, 11. During the attack, God will intervene, bringing judgment on the invaders. That's mentioned in Ezekiel 38, 19, 22, and Ezekiel 39:6. Glorifying himself and making himself known among the nations. That's 30, Ezekiel 38, 16, 23, 39, 13, and then Ezekiel 39, 13, and 21. In Genesis 10:6, it says the sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Ezekiel 38, 1 to 23. The word of Adonai came to me. Human being, turn your face toward Gog, of the land of Magog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Say that Adonai Elohim says, I am against you, Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and bring you out with all your army, horses and horsemen, all completely equipped, a great horde with breastplates and shields, all wielding swords. Paras, Ethiopia, and Put are with them, all with breastplates and helmets. Gomer with all its troops. The house of Togomar in the far reaches of the north with all its troops. Many peoples are with you. Prepare yourself. Get ready, you and all your crowd gathered around you, and take charge of them. After many days have passed, you will be mustered for service. In later years, you will invade the land which has been brought back from the sword, gathered out of many peoples, the mountains of Israel. They have been lying in ruins for a long time. But now Israel has been extracted from the peoples, and all of them are living there securely. And Israel is not at peace yet. You will come up like a storm. You will be like a cloud covering the land, you and all your troops, and many other peoples with you. Adonai Elohim says, when that day comes, thoughts will well up in your land. When that day comes, thoughts will well up in your mind, and you will devise a sinister scheme. You will say, I am going to invade this land of unwalled villages. I will take by surprise these people who are at peace, living securely, all in places without walls, bars, or gates. I will seize the spoil and take the plunder. You will attack the former ruins that are now inhabited and come against the people gathered from the nations. So, doesn't that sound like this right now where it's talking about um, that you will devise a sinister scheme? You will say, I'm going to invade this land of unwalled villages. That's basically what Putin has done. But it's not the Gog and Magog war. So that right there, this right here is showing that more than likely this is, um, an imprint. Let's see. Let's go back. You will attack the former ruins that are now inhabited and come against the people gathered from the nations who have acquired livestock and other wealth and are living in the central parts of the land. And we also know that, people are coming back from the Israelites are coming back into the land of Israel from all over the world. Sheba, Dedan, and all the leading merchants of Tarshish will ask you, have you come to see spoil? Have you assembled your horse to loot, to carry off silver, gold, livestock, and other wealth, to take much plunder? Therefore, human being, prophesy. Tell Gog that Adonai Elohim says this. Won't you be aware of it when my people Israel are living in security? You will choose just that time to come from your place in the far reaches of the north, you and many peoples with you, all of them on horseback, a huge horde, a mighty army, and you will invade my people Israel like a cloud covering the land. This will be in the Aharat Hayamim, and I will bring you against my land, so that the nations will know when, before their eyes, I am set apart as holy through you, Gog. Adonai Elohim says, I spoke of you long ago through my servants the prophets of Israel. Back then, they prophesied for many years that I would have you invade them. When that day comes, When Gog invades the land of Israel, says Adonai Elohim, my furious anger will boil up. So we see that, we think that, well, um, there's righteous people. God won't let anything happen to the righteous people in this state, or this city or this country or whatever. And Israel is his chosen people, so he's not going to let anything happen to them. Yeah, nobody can overtake them. Um, but he has had them captured and carried away several times for their sins. Um, so, so it's he. Um, that this right here says, and we think, well, this is something. This bad thing is going on. It's all demonic. Okay, some of it may be, but also God says right here in His Word that this is not a demonic thing. It's, um, when Israel is attacked by all the countries in the world, that it's actually God has caused it. So if He's going to cause this, why won't He cause you know um, cities and towns and uh, countries and states um, to undergo destruction to bring them back from their iniquities? There's, where um, they're turning away from Him. So Um, so we see that it's not all demonic. It's also God trying to um, get us back on track. Let's see. In my jealousy, in my furious anger, sorry, let's start this over. In my jealousy, in my heated fury, I speak. When that day comes, there will be a great earthquake in the land of Israel, so that the fish of the sea, the birds in the air, the wild beasts, all the reptiles creeping on the ground, and every human being there in the land will tremble before me. Mountains will fall, cliffs crumble, and every wall crash to the ground. I will summon a sword against them throughout all my mountains, says Adonai Elohim. Every man will wield his sword against his brother. I will judge him with plague and with blood. I will cause torrential rain to fall on him, his troops, and the many peoples with him, along with huge hailstones, fire, and sulfur. I will show my greatness and holiness, meaning myself known in the sight of making myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am Adonai. And then Ezekiel 39, 1 to 29 says, so you, human being, prophesy against Gog. Say that Adonai Elohim says, I am against you, Gog, chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. I will turn you around, lead you on, and bring you from the far reaches of the north against the mountains of Israel. But then I will knock your bow out of your left hand and make your arrows drop from your right hand. You will fall on the mountains of Israel, you, your troops, and all the peoples with you. I will give you to be eaten up by all kinds of birds of prey and by wild animals. You will fall in the open field, for I have spoken, says Adonai Elohim. I will also send fire against Magog and against those living securely in the coastlands. Then they will know that I am Adonai. I will make my holy name known among my people Israel. I will not allow my holy name to be profaned any longer. Then the nations will know that I am Adonai, the Holy One in Israel. Yes, this is coming, and it will be done, says Adonai Elohim. This is the day about which I have spoken. Those living in Israel's cities will go out and set fire to the weapons to use as fuel: the shields, breastplates, bows, arrows, bows, and spears. They will use them for fire. They will use them for fire 7 years, so that they will not need to gather wood from the field or cut down any from the forest, because they will use the weapons for fire. Thus They will plunder those who plundered them, and rob those who robbed them, says Adonai Elohim. When that day comes, I will give Gog a place there in Israel for graves, the traveller's valley, east of the sea, and it will block the traveller's passage. There they will bury Gog and all his sword, and they will rename it the Valley of Hamagog, which means sword of Gog. It will take it will take the house of Israel 7 months to bury them. Wow, that's a lot, people, isn't it? In order to cleanse the land. Yes, all the people of the land will be burying them. All the people, not just some, all of the people. So you think about how many people. I mean, it always sounds like, you know, it's going to take them 7 months to bury them. But if it takes everybody, every person, I'm not sure about the little about children. I mean, it might be children, but it's all the people. Think of how many people are now in Israel. Um, but it takes, and there were probably many, many more there by the end because of all the people that have yet to come in. Um, but if we just take just the amount that's there now, those many people, that it takes them 7 months, burying. Wow, that's a lot of people that's going to get killed. Wow. Let's see. Lost my place. Okay, let's go back to. Yes, all the people of the land will be burying them. They will become famous for it. It will be a day for me to be glorified, says Adonai Elohim. They will then pick me up for the continual duty of going through the land and burying with the travelers the corpses still lying out on the ground, in order to cleanse it. They will begin their search after the 7 months. As they go through the land, if anyone sees a human bone, he will put a marker next to it until the grave diggers have buried it in the valley of Hamon. Moreover, Hamona, its horde or multitude is what it means, will be the name of a city. Thus they will cleanse the land. As for you, human, Adonai Elohim says that you are to speak to all kinds of birds and to every wild animal as follows. Assemble yourselves and come, gather yourselves from all around for the sacrifice. I am preparing for you a great sacrifice on the mountains of Israel, where you can eat flesh and drink blood. You will eat the flesh of heroes and drink the blood of the earth's princes, rams, lambs, goats, and bulls, fattened in Bashan, all of them. You will eat fat till you are gorged, and drink blood till you are drunk at the sacrifice I have prepared for you. At my table, you will be satiated with horses, horsemen, heroes, and every kind of warrior, says Adonai Elohim. Thus, I will display my glory among the nations, so that all the nations will see my judgment when I execute it, and my hand when I lay it on them. From that day on, the house of Israel will know that I am Adonai, their God, while the nations will know that the house of Israel went into exile because of their guilt, because they broke faith with me, so that I hid my face from them and handed them over to their adversaries, and they fell by the sword, all of them. Yes, I treated them as their uncleanness and crimes deserved, and I hid my face from them. Therefore, Adonai Elohim says this: Now I will restore the fortunes of Yaakov and have compassion on the entire house of Israel, and I will be jealous for my holy name. They will bear their shame and all their guilt from breaking faith with me, because they are living securely in their land with no one to make them afraid. This will be after I have brought them back from the peoples and gathered them out of their enemies' lands, thereby being consecrated through them in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am Adonai their God, since it was I who caused them to go into exile among the nations, and it was I who regathered them to their own land. I will leave none of them there any more, and I will no longer hide my face from them. For I have poured out my spirit on the house of Israel, says Adonai Elohim. And then the study note for uh, chapter 39, verse 11. I will give Gog a place there in Israel for graves. Ezekiel describes the aftermath of God's judgment. For 7 years, Israel will use weapons for fuel. Gog's graveyard, east of the Dead Sea, will be so massive it will cause traffic jams for those traveling through that region. According to the sages, the valley of Hamon will be a grave reserved for Gog, and it will take 7 months to bury the dead and cleanse the land. The Gentile nations will finally understand why Israel experienced such a turbulent and violent history. Israel's final state of joy and security will overshadow their shame. They will enjoy safety, a relationship with the Lord, and God's rock, which is God's Spirit or holiness. The the dictionary in my Leader's Bible says that Magog is a place from which Gog arises to make war against God's people. And for Gog, it says a prince from the land of Magog leads final battle against God. Uh, and for First Chronicles 1:5 says the sons of Yephet, or Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yavon, Tuval, Meshach, and Tyrus. The study note for uh, just 1:1. Um, let's talk about oh of Adam, Shet, and Enosh. Chapter 1 is the beginning of the 9 chapter genealogy, starting with Adam. The material follows the text of Genesis. However, its purpose is to point to the culmination of God's plan in Israel rather than the patriarchs. Um, first, so that was First Chronicles 1:1 is that study note. First Chronicles 5:4-6. Uh, the descendants of Joel, his son Shemaiah, his son Gog, his son Shemai, his son Micah, his son Reiah, his son Baal, and his son Beerah. Tilgat-Pilneser, king of Ashur, carried him away captive. He was leader of the Reubeni. Saying up for Revelations 27, the adversary will be set free from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations. Compare the structure of Ezekiel 36-48 with Revelations 20-22. Ezekiel 36-37 speaks of Israel's salvation with David ruling. That's Revelations 21-6. In Ezekiel 38-39, Gog and Magog interrupt this rule with an eschatological battle in which the nations come against the kingdom. The final order is described in Ezekiel 40-48 in terms of a rebuilt temple and a renewed Jerusalem. In both places, an eternal kingdom follows a temporal kingdom after a final war. And the same for Revelation 27-10. When the 1,000 years are over, the adversary will be set free from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for the battle. Their number is countless as the sand on the seashore, and they came up over the breadth of the land and surrounded the camp of God's people and the city he loves. But fire came down from heaven and consumed them. The adversary who had deceived them was hurled into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Now, it talks in Revelations about birth pangs at the end times. So I looked that up. Um, and I also looked up about birth pangs, even though I have children. There are some people that, um, have never had children. So, um, just to give like um, a little clarification of, of what this actually is, I went ahead and did a little bit more research on birth things. Um, so there are what they call Braxton Hicks or false labor that usually occur before the baby comes, and Braxton Hicks, um, it seems like you're having labor. It feels like you're having labor, but you're not in labor. It doesn't usually last all that long. Um, but the true labor is a it's when the baby's actually coming. And so I guess you can kind of say that Carl Braxton Hicks is like the imprint of labor. Right, so you're gonna have down to this part. I mean, I know God can, have you not go through Braxton Hicks before you actually go into labor. Um, because that's what happened with my middle child. I was premature labor, so I didn't have the Braxton Hicks. I had the actual labor. Um, so, um, but anyway, so this is what you know, this is from a medical medicinenet.com. Braxton Hicks versus true labor. Braxton Hicks contractions or false labor are irregular contractions that occur during the third trimester or possibly in the second trimester. Braxton Hicks contractions usually are milder than those of real labor and they do not occur at regular intervals. True labor contractions occur at regular intervals and are stronger than Braxton Hicks contractions. Braxton Hicks contractions do not occur at regular time intervals. True labor, this is why they want you to time them. Why they time them is to find out whether or not is this false labor or are you baby coming? True labor contractions usually get closer together, become stronger, and happen at intervals that become closer together. They may even lessen or go away when you move or change body positions. Braxton Hicks may cause an uncomfortable tightening sensation, but usually are not as painful as the real thing. True labor usually begins after the 37th week of pregnancy. They are a sign that labor is starting. They occur at regular time intervals and become stronger, more intense and painful, and closer together over time. Braxton Hicks can vary in length from less than 30 seconds to up to 2 minutes or more. Labor contractions usually last from 30 to 90 seconds. Now, I want you to keep that in mind as I'm reading about the birth pangs of um, that Jesus talks about in the last days, and it's also mentioned in Revelations. Okay, so um, this was from um, End Times Watch Prophecy. I'm sorry, End Times Prophecy Watch. That's the name of the website. Uh, and the article is Birth Pains Before Yeshua's Return. And this is mentioned, the scripture references it gives is Matthew 24, 3 to 8, Luke 21, 8 to 11, and 25 to 28. Mark 13, 37. That's Luke 21, verses 8 to 11, and verses 25 to 28. Sorry. Um, Birth pangs, in terms of Bible prophecy, refers to certain convulsive geopolitical, geophysical, astrophysical, and worldwide socio-economic events and issues scheduled to occur in the time leading up to Jesus Christ's second coming. These are likened to the contractions experienced by a woman about to give birth, with those episodes increasing with frequency and intensity. Jesus' foretelling of these birth pains used the word sorrows in his Olivet Discourse on end time things to come. All of the birth pains were given by Jesus and the Old and New Testament prophets in context of the tribulation, Daniel's 70th week. This will be the last 7 years of human history leading up to Christ's second coming. The top 10 birth pangs count down from number 10 to number 1 in significance relative to current issues and events. Number 10, signs of the sun, moon, stars. Luke 21:25. The present world of earth dwellers has seen signs in the sun, moon, and stars that no other generation has seen. From looking into the universe with our powerful telescopes to spacecraft traversing a black void beyond the farthest planet of our solar system, we have seen things through the prism of photographic science, something no other people in Earth's history has known. Whether considering the solar flares that disrupt the Earth's electromagnetic mechanics, or looking with awe upon spectacular landings on the moon, or observing with horror the explosions of two shuttles, we have seen fearful signs. Who could but be mesmerized by watching the Shoemaker-Levy 9 comet slam into Jupiter in July 1994? UFO sightings around the globe are becoming almost routine fare. We have seen the beginnings of this birthbang, scheduled to become much more intensive when the tribulation begins. And I personally believe that the UFO that we are seeing are not alien spacecrafts. I believe that they are actually um, angels and demons. Um, and where there's a bunch of them together, and fashion and everything. I'm believing that that's um, the spiritual warfare that's going on. I might be wrong, but that's what I believe. Um, that's one of those things um, where um, I, um, I don't personally believe in aliens, um, but that's you know I eat the meat and spit out the bones sort of thing. Um, but you just have to pray and ask God, okay, is you know what is this? You know. So number 9. Uh, so this is Genesis 6, 11, and 13, and Luke 17:26. Tribal slaughters in the darkest regions, gang violence, family violence, one-on-one homicide rage, terrorism from the Middle East. Violence in this last time is a symptom at the beginning of sorrows. Number 8. Famines, pestilence, earthquakes. Matthew 24:7 and Luke 21:11. It is an astounding paradox that there is at the same time plenty of every variety of life-sustaining foods and medicines in most of the Western world, particularly in America. Yet there are deadly pestilences and famines in places such as Ethiopia, the Sudan, and many other geographical regions. These are created in almost every case by ethnic cleansing ordered by dictators, just as Jesus foretold. Nation shall rise against nation. The word for nation is the Greek word ethnos, from which our English word ethnic is derived. Earthquakes are being reported at an exponentially growing rate. Not just quakes, but quakes of significant magnitude. Number 7. Nations in distress with perplexity. Luke 21:25. Planet Earth and all of the nations during this last time are filled with perplexities when trying to fix the things that seem to be broken. Economies are in trouble. There is ethnic rage around the world. No one can live in peace. Terrorism threatens everyone, everywhere. Yet Jesus says that these are just the beginning of sorrows, announcing the birth of a truly new world order. It will be the birth not of the time of Antichrist regime, but ultimately of Jesus Christ's millennial kingdom. 6. False prophets and false teachers. Matthew 24:4-5. That's why I was trying to tell you, just pray, before you just automatically believe anything. I am not a false prophet. I am not a false teacher, but I could unintentionally tell you something wrong. So just be very extremely careful. Because the ones that are considered false prophets and false teachers are not the ones who, get it right. Their heart is to tell you correctly, but they might have misunderstood something, or you know they've done a lot of their homework, but the information they've been given has been false. But it's coming from a heart of love, and it's unintentional. They don't mean to tell you that. That's not a false prophet or false teacher. That's just someone who doesn't. You know, it makes mistakes. We're human. We can make mistakes. Um, Jesus forewarned that there would be an assault on truth by false teachers. A couple of recent examples of just these type of stormfronts, type birth things, are the attacks on the deity of Jesus Christ. The secular entertainment and news industries, as well as some within Christendom, are attempting to inculcate us with the message that Jesus didn't really die on the cross. It was a fake death and resurrection. That Jesus and Mary Magdalene were actually lovers who produced offspring that now make up a progeny which will one day rule in some nebulous way that is never explained. Documentaries have been shown time and time again purporting that the bones of Jesus' relatives, perhaps even Jesus himself, have been found in bone boxes in caves in and around Jerusalem. These are never backed by even the slightest of evidence. They are fiction of the worst order. Jesus, however, forewarned of this and told the generation who would begin seeing this type of false teaching to believe it not. Jesus said they would come in his name and would even claim to be him. Recent news accounts tell of a man that claims just that, and he has received considerable news coverage. And I'm thinking of right now of like the History Channel saying that it was actually aliens that built the pyramids. Um, our world was created by aliens. Um, uh, the evolution theory of where there was that man evolved from apes or monkeys or gorillas, whatever. Um, my thought on that is, okay, let's just say that happened. So that means that they were that the apes were evolving. They were changing. So if they're changing, then all of them change. And um, then there would be no more apes, right? Okay, so why are there still apes? Then they've changed it to, no, we didn't come from apes. We came from fish. And what? So the fish were evolving. And then we spotted humans and then we just walked out of the sea. Okay, so that's true. And that means that all of the fish would have been changing. So why are there still fish? My thought, this is a joke. I really believe that God created us, but if my thought is, if it really was evolution, where do we come from? We came from dodo birds. There are no were dodo birds, right? So that would make sense. Um, but I don't believe that we evolved from anything. God created us. Um, so you know, that's my thought on that. It's bringing on like a little joke here and there, sarcastically. Let's get back to our article. Let's see. Second Timothy 4:3-4. Most troubling of all are the false teachers within Christianity. These proclaim a do good and feel good gospel. They totally stay away from preaching and teaching that people are sinners, thus are separated from the God who created them. They don't teach that a terrible price had to be paid to redeem us from our sins. Jesus' love is the only message they want to teach. But they refuse to fully reveal the extent of that love. That God gave his son Jesus as a sacrifice for the sins into which we are born since the fall in Eden. They fear, and their fears are well grounded, that if they preach the rest of God's love offering to mankind, they will lose their huge audiences, who want only to hear the fairy tales that they bring every Sunday in their gargantuan arenas and through the multi-million-dollar television forums. And that just brings back to mind of where I am. God has laid it on my heart to start a synagogue here in this new county that I'm living in. Um, but to reach out uh, to um, the homeless people here in this county, um, and not just go, here's a few dollars, here's some clothes, some food. Um, God loves you. He doesn't want you to go to hell. So let's say the sinner's prayer. Okay, now you're saved. Go on your little merry way. Okay, he wants me um, to actually bring them into the church. I'm sure that these people say, "Oh, yeah, come to." If they, I mean, they might say, Well, what we're having services." They say, "I want a church," okay. But you don't see the homeless on the church in your pews. Um, they they need to be taught just as well, and they need to be in there learning every week, just like the wealthy person, or the person that goes to work every day, who has a home, and yeah, they need that as well, and they're not getting that. They're not getting, they're just told, okay, now you're saved, go on, but they're not taught how to stay close to God. Um, and what's the next step? Um, so I want, the regular, the people who have homes and food and jobs and all that to come in, but I also want these homeless people to feel just as comfortable sitting there, with the other people. Um, and whenever I mentioned that to somebody, um, I was in a church setting, and um, she's supposed to be a Christian, and she says, "Why? Why do you want them there?" And I was thinking, "Oh my gosh!" And this is supposed to be somebody who goes out and hands out food and pamphlets and clothing and all this, to the homeless people. Um, but they need more than that. And why wouldn't you want them there? Why wouldn't you want them to stay connected to God? You know, so that's the purpose of these videos and my podcast is to reach out to more people. But unfortunately, I am not able to reach the homeless with these videos and podcasts. there's another group that I need to reach out to, and um, so God has laid that on my heart that that's what I need to do. He's not giving. I thought he'd give me the time, but I was wrong about that time. So he's not actually pinpointing because I need, I need a building, um, and I need, you know, along with the building, light and heat and the electricity. There's a lot of things that goes into this that I don't have, and I don't have the money for it. Um, because I'm not rich, I am on disability. Um, so, but God will provide it in some way. It might be, I reach out to you and say, hey, God wants me to start asking for money now, and this is what's going to. And if that happens, you'll see the result on here because I will be making videos. Other service they will be recorded, and you can watch them. If I can figure out how to do it live, we'll do it live. If not, they'll be uploaded afterwards, so that you can see that this is what is going on with your money, and I'm not just saying, "Oh, I'm going to do it," and then never do it. Um, so, or he might just, give me a huge increase um in my disability check, or somebody might stranger might always walk up to me and hand it to me, or say, "Hey, guess what? Here's a building I want to hand you." So I don't know how he'll do it, but I know that he will. Um, so let's go on. Um, they fear and their fears are well grounded that if they preach the rest of God's love offering to mankind, they will lose their huge audiences who want only to hear the fairy tales they make every Sunday in their gargantuan arenas and through their multi-million dollar television forums. Number 5, Anton technology, which can be found in Daniel 12:4. The past century to the present date has produced an explosion of transportation and knowledge experienced by no other people at any time in human history. Uh, Revelations 13:16 to 17. That explosion of knowledge has produced the technologies that can enslave the world. Antichrist will use satellite and computer technologies, no doubt, to put all Earth dwellers in electronic bondage. Electronic funds transfer methodologies and devices are now capable of bringing all people into a cashless society, one that can fit within the system foretold in Revelation 13:16 to 18. This represents a major birth pain, and we're seeing that. Um, and they're here uh, back during uh, like last year, sometime in 2020, I think, or last year. That's when it started. The change shortage. It's funny to me though that there was no change shortage whenever we have been in lockdown. We're first coming out. Um, but then once that economy got on a roll, all of a sudden there are no coins anywhere. They're wanting you to use exact change or um, uh, the card, right? Credit or debit card. Um, and they've been trying it again off and on um, around in this area. I know. Um, it's not all of the bank. I mean, not all of the businesses, but some of them have it their signs. Like I went to Wendy's last week, and their sign said exact change or credit or debit card. Well, how do you know what you know how much your food is going to be? After taxes, when you make your order, you don't sit there. If you're ordering the exact same thing all the time, then you know. But otherwise, you don't you're not sitting there, adding up, all the prices and trying to put in the tax amounts and um and figuring out, okay, this is exactly now what do I, you know. So uh, I said to her, I don't have said I'll just go somewhere else, because I don't know that I have the exact change. And she says, well, you can use your debit card or you can give us over that amount, but you won't be getting any change back. Now, where's this? If I gave her, exact change, would she have some change in her drawer? The people do that. They're, we come in, it's, so I went next door to Burger King and they didn't have that sign up. They had change. Um, they're able to get change from their bank, but Wendy's couldn't. I don't. So and this has been coming up a little bit here and there in different places. So um, it's all to get you to go to that. And also, um, another way that they're trying to get like away, money, um, is by going to this Bitcoin thing. Um, and one thing that people really don't think about are where you order your stuff online, you pay online. The more online business that you do, which requires a debit or credit card, um, that's just um, that's taken away from the money, and there's so that you'll get see, and you can even like order your food, on an app. People think, oh, this is so this is so much easier. It's better. Well, no, not really, because it's setting you up for this cashless society. That's where it's all leading to. Okay. Number 4, nations are lining for prophetic fulfillment, which we found in Psalms 2:1-3. Nations today are aligning against God, just as prophesied in the Psalms above. The birth pain like convulsions are coming in contractions as nation after nation pulls further from the prescription their Creator wrote for how life on earth must be conducted. These nations, specifically foretold to be end time players, can be found in the following scriptures. They are in the news every day in our time. The revived Roman Empire, Daniel chapter 2, chapters 2, 7, 8, 9, and 11. Other nations, China and kings of the east, Revelation chapters 9 and 16. Russia, Iran, which is Persia, and many others. And that's in Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39. And you'll see that um, over the years, these things have come in little amounts, and you've not really felt anything from them. Like with the debit and credit cards. I remember when the debit cards came out. Um, that was just great because it was like back in the 1990s. Because you didn't have to have a credit card, which was leading people into running their credit, into more debt and everything. But um, so you didn't have to, uh, and you didn't have to worry about writing a check and overdrawing your checking account, writing a bad check. Um, so you could just use a credit card or use the debit card. Wow, but now we're seeing this, that was like a Braxton Hicks contraction, you know. Um, it, it was setting it up so that, you know, later on, there's, you can't say, well, I don't have a card at all, and where like Social Security and and your checks, your employment checks, they uh, still get an actual physical check. They're direct deposited, okay, and you have to have a checking account or savings account to so that it can be direct deposited. It's the only way you're gonna get paid. So it seems like a little inconvenient, but also you're thinking, yeah, hey, this is great. This is awesome. It makes life easier. But now, it's making it to where you can go back and you can see these things. How um they seemed fine and normal and it didn't really worrisome. But you could see that the progression is how they're getting, it's making things worse. So um, they were back when they came out. They were like a false labor, you know. But now we're getting into the major birth pains. Number three, apostasy. One world church forming. Next can be found in Revelation chapters 13 and 17. Revelation chapter 13 prophesies that a false prophet will paint all earth dwellers, will point all earth dwellers to Antichrist, who will ultimately demand worship. Second Thessalonians chapter 4 also speaks to this demand for the world to worship the man of sin, also known as the son of perdition, that will develop an ecumenical amalgamation of many religions, leading to a one world religious system, as outlined in Revelation chapter 17. This apostate system will reign until Antichrist decides he wants all worship for himself. His regime will turn on all who run this one world church and destroy them. There is a massive movement toward this system today. The cry is against true Christianity. That is, that accuses adherents of Christ as the only way to salvation and heaven of being narrow minded and bigoted. There are many ways to God, they cry. They proclaim that the only way to end the religious bickering is to melt all religious beliefs into one system of religiosity. The movement toward one world religion is a major birthbank swelling and moving in our time. And we see that stickers about coexist. It's got all the different religious symbols on there. And recognize, all these different religions is, and some of them are actually like Hinduism. I did a major research on Hinduism, and I'm gonna just go ahead and make a video out of that um, about um, because here in this county there is a Hindu temple, and God was telling me that it was um, actually the portal of hell, and I got to read up on their website, and I did some really deep research, and they worship Lord Shiva, which whenever you actually break down and you follow the line of Shiva, going from their um you know their gods and goddesses in Lord Shiva, and going from reading what they have written, and you go ahead and you break it, you follow it on down, you find out that it all comes down to Baal, which is we know is Satan. Um, but they say that, and this is from their website. It's Sri Somasvara, Srisomevara, if I remember correctly. You could just Google Hindu Temple Asheville, Asheville, and it will bring you to temple that it's in Clyde, North Carolina. Okay, um, or you could Google Hindu Temple, um, Clyde, North Carolina, and that's CLYDE. Um, and coming from that particular website, um, it says that Lord Shiva created the world. He is the actual God, he created everything. And it makes it sound like, you know, our Heavenly Father and Lord Shiva are the same person, but we know they're not. So it's very, very, very deceptive. Now, do I think that these people are, evil and wicked? Not necessarily. The worshippers are evil. I don't necessarily think that they're. I think that they're just being led astray. Um, and that's the way that it's. Even Jesus says that in the end times that um, people will be led astray, and that it'll be very easy for even Christians to be led astray. It's because you know when he makes it so deceptive and so. I mean, why would you not think? You're hearing about how you find peace and tranquility, and it's you know, and there's God. God is that this is this is actual God. You know, and the way it's worded, it's very very easy to fall into that trap. Very easy. Um, Point number two: one world government forming, and at the same time, one world economy. The forming of a new world order is underway at a phenomenal pace. The so-called international community has arisen in this last time to pressure less powerful nations to conform to the developing one, to, to conform to the developing one world temple, or remain forever in destitution. The European Union is the reviving Roman Empire. Many prophecy observers believe, and is on the ascent in a swiftness that amazes Daniel chapters 2, 7, 8, 9, 11, Revelation chapters 13, 17, 18, all foretell of the rise of one world government. We are seeing the development of world trading blocks on the order of the EU, which is European Union. One such trading bloc is taking place in North America and includes Canada, the US, and Mexico, the smaller nations in the hemisphere, most likely scheduled to be a part of the mix. These world economic blocs look to be what will eventuate in the Kings of prophecy of Revelation chapter 17. So I'm wondering, I've not really looked that up to see who is in the names of the nations it's in NATO. That's what this is sounding like. So I wonder if the NATO nations, there are 10 of them and they are the 10 kings. Hmm. Something to ponder about and look up. The economic convulsions taking place represent both things that portend the coming tribulation. And something else that just came to mind, and I believe it's God telling me that. So I saw where, uh, and I got more information about this. I actually wrote down the entire article. Um, where we won't go fight. The United States will not. She's refusing to go fight with Ukraine because they're not part of um, the NATO alliance. But if Russia invades, because it looks like they're going to invade Poland, if they invade Poland or any nation that is part of NATO, then we will go fight. So that's just saying, you know, basically, Ukraine, you're on your own um, unless you join our NATO. Let's see. Um, and then the number one point is Israel. Nation born in one day, Isaiah 66, 6 to 9, and Zechariah 12 and 14. Key among factors surrounding Israel as a number one birth pain nation being at the heart of the cry for peace and safety. As a matter of fact, Antichrist confirming of a covenant of peace is the act that will issue in the tribulation, is foretold in Daniel 9:27. With the proposed roadmap to peace and other such proposals, there is an increasing cry from the world of diplomacy today for peace and safety. This is not without good reason. The threat of thermonuclear war is unthinkable. So deadly would be the results. The Apostle Paul prophesied this would be the case for the last time, and what the final result of that cry would be. For when they shall say, this is from 1 Thessalonians 5:3 says, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as shall fell upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. There is great worldwide clamor for peace today, whether considering the area surrounding the tiny Jewish state of Israel, the entire Mideast region, or other less biblical geographic areas of the world. People are grasping for peace and safety. Specifically, there's a great cry for safety today, seeking security from the threat of global terrorism. This terrorism is, for the most part, wrapped around the existence of Israel in the area known as the Holy Land. Added to the volatility and tension is the matter of oil, which likely will be the catalyst in the geopolitical sense for bringing all nations to Armageddon. And look, this oil is a big thing in this war. Israel is increasingly being seen by the world diplomatic community as the holdup to establishing peace. Land for peace is the diluted mantra. If Israel will give up more territory, the Islamic terrorists will cease their murderous rage. That's what they'll be told. The prophet Zechariah foretold that the whole world will turn against Israel, and that this will bring on the worst time of war making in world history. Let's see. Give me just a moment. I'll look up Zechariah 12, 1 to 3, and read that to you. Just one moment. Okay, so here it is. Zechariah chapter 12, verses 1 to 3. A prophecy, the word of Adonai concerning Israel. Here is a message from Adonai, who stretched out the heavens, laid the foundation of the earth, and formed the spirit inside human beings. I will make Jerusalem a cup that will stagger the surrounding peoples. Even Yehuda will be caught up in the siege against Jerusalem. When that day comes, I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who try to lift it will hurt themselves, and all the earth's nations will be messed against her. So that makes it sound like it's not going to be like part of Israel actually be like it's not going to be just against the nation of Israel, but it's going to be just against Jerusalem. Jerusalem. Well, I'm reading that now, but I might be wrong on that part. But that's the way that I'm reading it. Just pray and ask God what that's the way it is. Or you can do your own research um, and find out. The cry for peace and safety will be answered by the end time world leader, but the people of the world will get more than they bargained for. Daniel 8:25 says, and through his policy, also he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Israel and its threat to world peace because of satanic rage against God's chosen people is the number one birth pain that indicates where this generation stands on God's prophetic timeline. So then I also decided that what I would do is I would go to the see what the rabbis that I like to listen to say about this. Um, those are rabbis Mizrahi, Alana Nava. Mizrahi is Mizrachi. Anava, it's a lot Anava, that's Alon, and then the last name Anava, Anava. They don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah, but um, they they still have a lot of interesting things to say, um, and you can learn a lot if you like like I do, eat the meat and chew out the bones or spit out the bones. um, so and then I also uh, um, um, Mizrahi is his lectures are like uh, 2 to 3 hours long, so I don't always listen to all of the lecture, the entire lecture. Um, but because I don't always have that much time to listen to the entire lecture. When I do, I will. Um, and a novice can be kind of long too. Um, but Mizrahi, he um, his lectures are about the um, the parsha of the day. Um, so and he goes on about other things too. So he's not just teaching that; he's teaching things about where he was born and raised in Israel, and so he talks about Israel. He's um, in the past and now, um, and he lives in New York, in Muncie, New York. So he has a lot of knowledge about what goes on in that area, um, which is from what I've gathered from his thoughts, is pretty close to New York City. So he has a lot of knowledge about that as well. Um, and he talks about world events and everything. And you can also learn Hebrew words through there. So um, and Alana Nava was born and raised in Israel. He has spent time over here in the United States, and he continues to travel to the United States from time to time. Um, and he gives lectures on different things, and he also talks about things that are going on in Israel and the past and now, and things that he's experienced over here in the United States and current events worldwide, um, and you can learn Hebrew words from him too, and meanings of these words, and they are so you can learn. They're very good teachers, um, and um, Rabbi Mordecai Griffin, he is on Lapid Judaism. He says that there's a difference between Lapid Judaism and Messianic Jews. Um, that they both believe in Jesus as the Savior, but the Messiah, but there's supposed to be a difference somehow. I have not quite. Um, I still he explains it, but I've not grasped why there's a difference. But so I went to them to see what they had to say. Listen to their lectures. So first one I listened to was Rabbi Mizrahi, and this is because of the timeline is because it wasn't giving the exact date. It just said like how many days ago or how many weeks ago. Um, so this first one was I figured it was roughly like he did it on like March 8th or March 9th. This is and this is just notes. I didn't write word for word what he said. I just took notes um, on all of these. Um, so he says that Hashem decides on Rosh Hashanah what is going to happen to each person and each nation in that year. If Poland attacks, it will bring other countries into the conflict because it is in NATO. Within an hour, that will be a world war and it could become Gog and Magog. Most Ukrainians are cruel to the Jews. In World War II, they killed 1.2 million Jews. Thousands of soldiers have tattoos of swastikas and Hitler. Now, that's what he said, and I don't have any proof of that. And I'm not trying to spew hate speech. Don't even go there. That's what I'm doing because I'm not. I'm just saying what he says. Um, and you just and don't take this as oh my gosh because Batya said that this person said that's a reason for me to go out and just start killing Russians and Ukrainians and this group and that group. No, I don't do that. You don't. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not for that at all. I'm just relating what he says, okay? And then you pray about it and you have God reveal to you what is truth and what is not, okay? To question the result of God's decision is heresy. Everything that happens in the world, either directly or indirectly, is to open the eyes of the Jews. It is written, when Hashem wipes out the wicked, it is celebration to the world. Baseless hatred is when you don't see that the person is actually committing sins against Hashem. You are only allowed to hate someone when you see the actions they are doing is against God and you tell them that it is what they are doing, but they do it anyway. So, in other words, this goes right back to where he was talking about the Ukrainians um, hating the Jews, and torturing them and everything. So, if you're not allowed to hate these people, um, because I read that. Let's just say that he's right on this. Okay, that does not give you a right to hate them. That would be oh well because they said this and I hate these people now. That's baseless hatred. If you go to them and you say, you you say, okay, what you're doing is against God. You need to stop it. And you go don't start up with your protests and yelling and screaming at them and all that stuff. Jesus didn't do that. He was the only one who had a right to torture people and to scream at them and yell at them and shake them, and slap them across the face and whatever. He was the only one who had the right to do that. And he did not do it that way. He went to them in love. And that's the way you need to do it. So you go to this person. Um, and you say, okay, I see this is what's going on. But do you realize that what you're doing is against God? Um, and you know, and you don't need to be doing it that way. Um, you need to stop it. And I'll probably can I pray with you with God? Because when two people agree on something, it's just it's in the midst of it. Two or more people are gathered together in His name. He is in the midst of them, and they two or more people agree on the same thing, you know, He will answer their prayers. Okay, so you go to them and you try to talk to them and you try to just like Jesus did, and they refuse to change their ways. Then you have a right to hate them. You don't have the right to go kill them. You don't. You don't have the right to go and torture them. You don't have the right to treat them badly at all. You put that into God's hands and let Him deal with it. Okay? If He wants you to go out and kill them, um, then He will say that just like he says in His Word. He will say that as like you as a king or part of an army or something, not just to go, just shooting up people. That's demonic, and don't do that. Okay, don't. Um, so um, When you run after honor, honor will run away from you. Nobody can do anything to you that Hashem did not write on Rosh Hashanah. So, and if you have been chosen to do something bad to someone, it is because he is guilty of other things. He is not fully clean. God has allowed Satan to do this. He has to check himself to see what he has been doing that would cause God to choose him. So, in other words, what he's trying to say here is um, somebody comes to you. You've not done anything to them, and they're just being cruel to you, and you don't know why. You know, you can't figure out what have I done to this person? Um, and it's because he's saying that it's um that yes, it is a satanic attack, but you're supposed to check yourself and say, what have I done? What have I done to you, God? Um, you might you've not done anything to that person, but you've done something to God. So you're supposed to check God. Say, what about God? God, because you're using this person to show me that I've done something wrong. That's what he's saying there. Um, and the Mishkan was buried under the western wall of the temple about Solomon. It is eternal. Um, and the Mishkan is the tabernacle. The tabernacle from the wilderness. Everybody's wondering what happened to it. That's where it's at. Um, and uh, this was and and there's a second video that I watched. I didn't watch all of these videos, but these are the two that because I was looking at the one right as they were Russia invaded, and then the one right after. And these are what I found. So this one he posted on March 9th or the 10th, and he says 8 days before Purim. She says the world is not fighting with Ukraine because it is not part of NATO. If they were, then these countries will be forced to enter the war. Poland is part of NATO. Putin is trying to stop Ukraine from joining NATO. Putin is loyal to everyone who has shaken his hand. However, the United States stabs people in the back. In other words, they'll say, okay, you're my friend, and I will, um, the United States says, okay, here are you, leader of France. Um, yeah, we're good buddies. So I got your back. Don't worry about it. Then he'll come to southern country. Let's just say, it's Canada. Okay. Um, Canada says, all right, United States, I I want to go. I don't. There's something about France that I don't like. I'm going to attack them, or well, I'm going to do in some way, whether it's you know military attack or it's okay. I'm going to put these sanctions against them. I will do this, that, or the other. If you will side with me, I will do such and such for you, which is you know, which is a better outcome for the United States. Maybe it's more money. Maybe it's a better trade agreement. It could be anything. Okay. Um. So, uh, Diana says, "Okay, sure, I'll do that." And so they join forces with Canada against France. Putin, on the other hand, say same situation. They have shaken hands. He's shaking hands with France and says, okay, we're buddies. I'm always there for you, no matter what. I'm there for you. Then Canada comes and says, hey, Russia, I want to do this attack on France. And I'll do, if you join forces with me, I will, um, uh, then I'll do all this stuff for you. So instead of people saying, okay, yeah, even though that's better for my country, it's a better deal for my country, I will, yeah, I'll side with you. We'll attack us together. No, he says, uh-uh. I made friends with the France. I agreed to take their side and everything. That's what I'm doing. So that's what he says. No, is that true or not? I don't know. Um, I'm just getting this from what Mizrahi says. You'll have to do the research and find out for yourself. Um, the Ukrainians have tortured the Jews worse than the Nazis did, which and this is supposed to be in like in the past, from what I understand. Again, this is his words, not mine. You have to research it because I've got so much on my plate that God's want me to do. I'm like the guy with the talents, who sees the talents. Where I have I took the talents He gave me and I've tried to increase it. I've not been very successful at increasing it, but I've at least tried. And so he says, "Okay, I want you to do more. I'm giving you more stuff to do." It started off with just Sunday school teaching, and then it's went from there to a website to a book, and I did videos and podcasts, and those videos and podcasts is doing other things within them, and it's just and now he's wanting me just I feel like he's wanting me to start up a synagogue here in this county, and so I would be more than happy to do all this deep research for you, but there's just so much. Yeah, I got so much already that I can't do it. But anyways, he says Zelensky is not a Jew. I don't know Zelensky's family background, but I do know that in order for you to be a blood Jew, that means you're not a convert. Um, they go by the mother's side. So if you say you've got Jewish blood, it has to come through your mother's side. Um, because they say that your mother could be ruined. There's your dad could be anybody. So that's why they you know which we have DNA and everything now, but back then before there was all that you know you just had the mother's word for it. Um, this is Mizrahi says Zelensky is not a Jew because even though his father is Jewish, his mother is not. Um, every night before going to sleep, he says to say, I forgive those who hurt me. The reason is because you might not wake up. And I know that has nothing to do with the war. Some of these things don't have anything to do with the invasion, but I thought they were good notes, and so I wrote them down. Now let's go on to Alana Lana. Um, and so the video that I found for him, he only did the one, and it was about it says it was made about 3 weeks ago. And the name of the video, if we're gonna find it, is Putin starting World War III? It's got WW and then the number 3. Biblical prophecies about Gog and Magog, which is GOGU apostrophe MAGOG, which if you spelled it out in Hebrew, it would be the U would be the letter Vav in between, and the letter Vav so would be Gog, and then the letter Vav, then Magog, and when you put the the letter Vav in front of a word, it means and. So that's and then there's a straight line. I don't get what the straight line means. There's current events and more. Okay. Um, so he says we are very close to the coming of Mashiach. And then mentions something about Agenda 2030. I don't know what that means. And a 3,300-year exile. Then he says the coming of Mashiach is like the birth of a child. And he goes on to explain, like, about the Braxton Hicks into labor, Like I just told you. The world is judged at four different times: Pesach, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, and Netzeret. Pesach, we will be redeemed from slavery. Rosh Hashanah, it will be the completion of judgment for the enemies of God. Netzeret, this is the last day of Sukkot, all the Jewish people will be gathered back to Israel by Moses, who will be resurrected. Sukkot, the temple will be rebuilt. The Holocaust was not Gog and Magog. Two prophets talked about Gog and Magog. It was in Ezekiel 38:39 and Zechariah 13:14. 13 and 14. Um, Gog is a king and Magog is a nation. Exodus 15:15, and just a little bit prior to verse 15. Magog is a very strong nation that will cause fear and just threatening. And that's what happened. I mean, how long did um, Putin have his um, his tanks going out, heading out towards that area? Um, and he could just he and other presidents of Russia have talked about, possibly hitting the nuclear button, and about threats, and the way they do, there's all this fear. Um, and we were in the Cold War. I think it was like in the 50s and 60s. I think it was after World War II, but before, and I don't know exactly sure how when it ended, because I've not done a whole lot of research on that. Um, but um, but it started like like in the 50s or 60s. People were, because of the Cold War was something between um, United States and Russia. Um, and people were building bomb shelters. Um, so to save them from this. So and that was just a threat. I mean, nothing ever came up. And then the Cold War ended. There was never anything done. Um, but they just threatened to have all this fear into people. Um, Gog and Magog war is the last control of the Psalmic Mem, which is a short version for Satan. The main reason the coming of Mashiach has to be with this war can be found in Ezekiel 38:24. The majority of the world is worshiping false gods. They think what they believe about God is correct, but they have been taught false doctrine, uh, which is revelation and sanctification. Um, and he also said that Shem, Ham, and Japheth were triplets, which that's a little note that for me to, as I'm redoing the book, um, to really dig deep and see if that's true. Reason number two why this war has to happen is to pay the wicked people back or sell the debt. Reason number three is to separate the good and evil. The war can be in any form. It can be ships, airplanes, boots on the ground, etc., firing bullets, dropping bombs, etc., technology, sanctions to destroy economies and create famines, or any other way God wants to do it. It says Gog is Japheth, which in Hebrew is Japhet. The first stage is the nations will provoke each other. One country will put tanks here, another will put ships there, etc., to appear that they might attack, but they don't do anything. Stage number two, threatening with weapons. They have parades showing what weapons and great army they have. Stage number three, Small organizations will take a practical physical action in the war. And these small organizations are people like ISIS, Hamas, um, things like that. Stage number four is actual war. Stage number five is the Gog and Magog war, which will occur in three stages. Number one, Ezekiel 38, it will be around the borders of Israel. And this one is around the borders of Ukraine. They're actually bringing an actual war against Ukraine. Really, like a world war against Ukraine is what is going on now with this invasion. Um, and you can look at what you're reading on the news. You can see a, the strong, a very strong. It, it's almost identical to the final war against Israel. Only instead of being Israel, it's Ukraine. Um, Stage number two on the mountain take place on the mountains of Jerusalem, which was found in Ezekiel 39. Number three in Jerusalem, according to Zechariah 14. Hashem will reveal himself and will be fighting the war. And we could see that he's doing that just from where the tanks of, at the beginning of the war, they had tanks running out of um, of gas and just soldiers, just giving up and stuff. Where's that coming from? That's God fighting on behalf of Ukraine. The Ark of the Covenant is buried and will be revealed by Mashiach. It was so heavy that it was never carried. It rose by itself and was escorted. And then he goes on to say that Psalmic Man has two wives, which I'm going to do some research on this. Lamed Yud Tav. You never say that name, so it's actually spelled Lylyt, which when there's been a lot of talk about the actual first wife of Adam was Lilith, which we know is false. But so that's who that's supposed to be. And Naamah. I'm wondering if that's the Naamah that is mentioned in Genesis. Because the names of the sons, I think it's Tubal Cain. And it says that one was a maker of like um, weapons for war, another for musical instruments. I'm thinking that's what it says. But anyways, it gives the names of these um, sons and what they do, and it mentions in Nehemiah, he had a daughter Nehemiah. Um, but nothing else is ever said about it. So I'm wondering if that's the Nehemiah. I'm, I'm going to definitely do some deep research. And that the Psalmic now has two wives, Lamed Tav, and Nehemiah, and there will be a war between them, and that's be found in the Zohar. It also says Josephus Flavius was a historian at the time of the destruction of the temple. He says Gog is a nation from the mountains of Caucasus, the Chechenes. Another commentator, Malbim, says Gog is a nation that does not circumcise themselves. This will happen when Israel is living in peace. Putin is not going to attack Ukraine. So this video was like right before um, they attacked. Let's see. Putin is not going to attack Ukraine, but the U.S. might send in soldiers that look like Russian soldiers to make it look like a Russian attack. I could possibly see that with this fake administration doing something like that. Um, occupying yourself with Torah, occupying yourself with Torah will overcome the Islamic man, and acts of kindness will overcome Lama Yed Tav. And the reason why you don't say that name is because you're invoking that. You're invoking on, coming in. In Genesis 50:24, Joseph gives a secret code about the Israelites leaving Egypt. He says, God will surely remember you and bring you out of this land. This is repeated in verse 25. Joseph also said they would know it was time for their redemption when someone would say these four words to them in a miraculous way. And he said it in Hebrew, actually. Um, so Moses said these words in Exodus 13:9. Because his lips were burned off when he put hot coals to his mouth, lips as a toddler, he was unable to say this until God was ready for him to. Now, and I've read that in many different places that what actually happened is that when he was a toddler, um, he took he'd been prophesied, from the reason. Let's go back a little bit. The reason why Pharaoh decided to kill all the babies, the sons, was because um, it was foretold that he would that there would rise up somebody from the Hebrew nation who would take over his kingdom and take the kingdom from him. So he wanted to make sure it did not happen. Um, so whenever his daughter found the baby, they were like, "Okay, we're seeing this," 'cause even though they were wicked, and they were uh, they worshipped false gods, they could still foresee things, because God gives everybody. He, God is the one who gives the people. Not everybody gets prophetic and is able to prophesy, but those that do, He gives that to them. And the so-called psychics, if they are true psychics, that is actually um, prophets or the ability to prophesy. Um, and so He set them up for that, but they've taken that ability and turned it to use for wicked um, purposes. So these people had uh, that ability, so they were able to see. Um, so they had already said, okay, um, this is the baby we've been telling you about, um, and and Pharaoh loved Moses, you know, and he had him sit on his lap, it was like, he was basically like a toddler, and Moses reaches up from his crown to his crown and he throws it down, and the psychics are like, his advisors are like, um, see, we told you, this is the child. That's what that means. When he ripped the crown off your head and threw it down, he was telling you, that he is going to take the crown from you. And that is actually what was going on. But so you need to kill him. And uh, so, he's like, well, maybe he's just being a baby. So before I kill him, I want to find out. So let's um, put some gold down and some coal, some burning coal. So let's see which one he chooses. So um, so if he chooses the gold, then we know that that's what that means. If he chooses the coals, it's just because it's shiny, and babies are attracted to shiny things. So and Moses goes to reach out for the gold, but an angel, I'm thinking it's Michael or Gabriel, I think, but I don't remember. But anyways, it was an angel. actually takes his hand and pushes it to the coals. So he picks up the coal, and as babies and toddlers do, they put it to his mouth, and it burned his lips. And according to a lot of novels, it actually burned the lips off it, burned his lips off, so he had no lips. So um, it says because his lips were burned off when he put hot coals to his lips as a toddler, he was unable to say this until God was ready for him to. So these words, you had to use your lips to say them. There are 5 articulations of the mouth. Aleph, Het, He, and Ayin are coming from the throat. Gimel, Yud, Kaf, Kuf are coming from the palate. Um, Dalet, Tet, Lamed, Nun, Tav are coming from the tongue. You use your tongue for that. Zion, Samik, Shin, Resh, and Sani are coming from the teeth. And when you say these letters, um you can see why. Again, he's got that from Bet, Vav, Mem, and Play. Now watch my lips as I say this. Bet, Vav, Mem, Pay. You have to use your lips to say that. These letters were used um, in that verse where it says, "God will surely remember you and bring you out of this land." Um, and when you say that those words in Hebrew, you're using these letters, the Bet, Vav, Mem, Pay letters, um, and so you couldn't say those. I was never able to say those. Um, but he but whenever he arrived there and he told that was the sign God wanted him to say to them. So he was able to say those letters to them. And that's what he meant when he was telling God, I can't talk. You know, you have to get somebody else to do it. I can't say this. It's because he couldn't say those with his lips, you know. Um, if I said, you'll, he fixed it where, he was able to say them. And that's how they knew that he was the one supposed to lead them out. And then he goes on to say, mother will be against daughter, son will be against father. And that's found at the end of the Mishnah. The last 20 minutes of this video, I'm talking about Alon's video, he says, the last 20 minutes of this video are about, no, I'm sorry. This is me saying this. The last minute of his video, that's what I found out. The last 20 minutes of his video, sorry, are about not worrying about what is going on in the world. Keep studying the Bible and know that God has everything in his control. Um, so just like my granny and papa said one time when a tornado was announced, it was going to hit our homes. You can't run from God. If it is your time to die, it will happen, no matter where you are. And Mashiach will arrive after. Then he goes on and says that Mashiach will arrive after 3,300 years. Know exactly where the 3,300 years starts. I didn't quite catch that, but you can go and try to. And I'll have all this stuff studied out eventually. But so then I go to Rabbi Griffin, who does believe that Jesus was the Messiah. And this is what he said. This was on his video dated February 24th. And he was given the instruction about the Aliyah of the day. The Aliyah is Bukati Aliyah 3. The Shekinah, Shekinah, united with Hashem and the divine Messiah. He says, is this invasion the beginning of Gog and Magog? Rabbi Giffen says, maybe. I don't know. We are forbidden to predict the coming of the Messiah. If we say it is the Gog and Magog war, then it won't be. When we predict something, it automatically messes it up. And that's the only video that I found where he said anything at all about the war. So then I went on to the partial readings. And um, so um, the partial ratings I started from um, uh, basically when the Adar, not the Adar started, but I had to go back a few days. Um, the first day of Adar 1 started on February 2nd uh, this year. And uh, another thing I found out was that hand breadth is considered 3 inches when I was doing all these. But anyways, so to go back to that because that was into the middle of the week, I had to go back because partial readings actually begin on the Sunday. Um, so I had to go back to January 30th, which was the 28th of Shabbat. And so that begins in Exodus 25:1, 27:19. Um, and um, so that parsha is teruma. It means contribution. And these partial readings are prophetic, and you can relate them to what's going to happen to you that day, and in the nation, in your local, your local, um, like your city, um, your your state, your nation, and the world. Um, so so that means teruma. Um, and then um, February 6th which is the fifth day of the first Adar. Um, it is Tetseva, you are the order, which is Exodus 27:20 to 30:10. Um, the the next one is um, Parsha. It starts on the 12th day of Adar. It's called Kitisa. It means when you take. That's on February 13th. Um, and let's see. Then on the 19th of Adar started on February 20th. Vayakel, he assembled. Um, and then the February 27th, which is when the right after the war started, um, it's Peko Day, which means it counts. March 6th was the third day of Adar, the second Adar. It's Va'ikra, which means he called. And the 13th, which is by Sunday, started, that was the 10th day of Adar. And this is Solve, Tzav, and it means give an order. So um, then you can read and relate how all that works. Um, so um, see so then I went and I looked to how the parsha relates to the Russian invasion. So from February 20th to the 26th, which is 19 Adar 1 to 25 Adar 1, it talks about how everyone brought needed items to make the tabernacle and everything in it. They brought more than was needed. Work on the tabernacle items began, and the nations began supplying needed items to Ukraine. The Israelites were a mixed multitude. because Egypt had been invaded and ruled by other nations, and they had taken people from other nations captive. These other nations went with the descendants of Jacob. So all 70 nations are probably in this group. This might be the reason for the sacrifice of the 70 bulls mentioned beginning in Numbers 29:13. Um, and you can also read 2 Corinthians 9 1 to 15. That'll go along with that. Um, so, um, and then, it's like I'm missing something. So the 26th of Adar. Oh, if you go to, you can go online and you can find like the, because we also read out of the prophets and um, that go along with these readings, and out of the New Testament falls right along in with this stuff, with these readings as well. Um, so the 26th of Adar 1 to the 2nd Adar 2 is February 27th to March 5th. Um, so according to Exodus 40, 34 to 35, then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of Adonai filled the tabernacle. Moshe was unable to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud remained on it, and the glory of Adonai filled the tabernacle. The Russian military started off badly. Their tanks ran out of fuel. So that's what happened. So you can see how, these two relate together. Um, because, God was there and he was fighting on their behalf. Um, and it's still ongoing that he's there, and, and Russian people are against what Putin is doing, but they're turning against him. Um, so, and that's all God doing that. And then March 6th to the 12th is the third of Adar 2 to ninth of Adar 2. According to Hebrews 13:16, it says, "But don't forget doing good and sharing with others, for with such sacrifices, God is well pleased." And then finally, um, right here it is. So this is what I was looking for. So the readings for the 20th of Shabbat, the 4th of Adar 1. So is um so that reading is Exodus 25:1 to 27:19. Um, so this was for starting January 30th. And then um the the other readings that go along with that is 1 Kings 5:26, or in the King James version it's verse 12 to 6:13. And then in the New Testament you read Hebrews 8:1 to 6, 9:23 to 24, and 10:1. And it says in there, the building of the tabernacle in the wilderness and the temple. Also, Jesus being the high priest and is in the heavenly tabernacle temple. And then, um, starting February 6th, was Exodus 27:20 to 30:10, Ezekiel 43 10 to 27, and Philippians 4 10 to 20, making the garments for the priests, consecrating it, and offering instructions, inner courtyard construction, and offering instructions. Um, it was in Ezekiel. Um, Paul saying he has known neediness and abundance. He has found contentment in both. The gifts they sent him was a fragrant aroma to God. Um, oh, and one little note that got to say was that when it's talking about that other people they brought in everything that was needed, and they actually brought in more than had that was needed. That was for um, he was like February 20th to the 26th. So at that point, we're seeing that the Russians that Putin was getting ready to invade. You know, he's setting things up. Um, and he's and what have we been doing? The nations around the world were saying, okay, well, I'll give you these planes, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, and they gave them way more than what they actually needed. Um, let's see. And then uh, that so that's whenever the contribution, Um, and then let's see. So and let's see. Sorry about this. Um, all my notes said okay. Here it is. Um, so on February 13th is the reading for that was Exodus 30:11 to 34:35, 1 Kings 18:1 to 39, Luke 11:14 to 20, Acts 7:35 to 8:1, 1 Corinthians 10:1 to 13, and 2 Corinthians 3:1 to 18. It's talking about a census taking, consecrating priests, golden calf, and the second set of tablets, and Moshe's shining face. Um, let's see. Make sure I've not forgotten anything. Um, so here's my thoughts about all of this. Um, it says in the Bible that there's nothing new under the sun. There has to be an imprint of something in the earth before the main event. I think this is the imprint of the Gog and Magog war against Israel. It is setting the stage before the final war. I don't believe the war will come to the land of Israel. Israel might. I'm talking about this current war, current invasion. I don't believe that this war will come to the land of Israel, but Israel might fight against Russia with everyone else. Um, the final battle is everybody against Israel. This invasion is looking more like everybody is against Russia. Um, so uh, Israel is not part of the NATO alliance. I looked that up, and they are not. So that's why I don't think that they will. Um, and I saw a news report. I can't find the where I've written it down. Um, I must have put it in something else. But one of our people um, said um, that we will not fight with we will not fight with Ukraine. We will not go into Ukraine and fight. Um, but and that's because Ukraine is not part of NATO. However, if Russia attacks Poland, who is part of NATO, or any other country that is part of NATO, we will go in and defy that. We will defend the NATO territory. So if if that happens, more than likely that would be a World War III. Um, so, but now they're talking about peace. They're trying to there's peace talks going on. So with those peace talks, um, that's saying for them to become um, um, that's setting them up to be you know to be allies for the Gog and Magog to go against Israel. Um, and we do know that Ukraine, and I'm not sure about the other countries, but that they were at one point part of Russia. Um, they even share the same language. Um, it's a little bit different, but it's not, um, but not a whole lot. It's Even though there's a little bit of difference, there's not so much that they can't understand each other. And I can say that for a fact. Um, Not just something that I've read from anywhere. But at my synagogue, um, we have a couple that the lady is Ukrainian and the wife is Ukrainian and the husband is Russian, and they are the ones that that told us that um, that their language is very similar. Um, it's different, but there's enough similarities to it that they can understand each other. It's kind of like with the United States and England. Um, there's, we say, I want some fish and French fries. They say, I want fish and chips. Whenever they say, when we say, thinking what they're wanting, when they say chips, they're meaning French fries. When we say chips, we mean potato chips. Um, just, but we could still, um, and the United States came out of, um, the United States people came out of England for the most part. I mean, there are, you know, people that came from even you know, back in the 1600s and 1500s, there were people coming over from not just England, but the Netherlands, the French, Spain, all these different Germany, all these different countries. Yes, but um, basically we were from England, came in English territory, the entire country, because there's so many little wars going on amongst these different countries over different parts of the United States, or become the United States, that eventually it became all England territory, and then we had a war and got free of that. So, and even then, there's as we're expanding, there were still, it would, and eventually, um, so I could, you know, um, so anyways, um, I hope that you enjoyed this. I'm so sorry that it's here as long, you might do like what I have to do at times, just break it up and listen to it, but I hope that this has been very enlightening to you, and I hope you have a wonderful and blessed part of your day. And remember, ask God, pray and ask God did she tell me the right thing? You know, did she lie to me? Which would um, not be intentional, but you know, it was what she told me the truth. Was she correct in her learning and in her research? Were these things that she read from these other people, you know, did were what they said correct? Um, and if not, if God reveals to you that no, that please let me know. Again, that's Bible Study Guide 101 at gmail.com, or you can put it in the uh, comment section down below the videos saying, look, this is wrong. You got it wrong. And this is the correct information. Here's my source. Just like I give you sources, you know, and so that, um, and then, if it's, if, if I'm wrong, you give me the source, I will be more than happy to go back to another video and podcast and say, whoa, wait a minute. I got this wrong. I apologize. This is correct. Um, and, if you want me to give your name, say, okay, will you please say that, mention me personally in your video about that that's where you got the information from. Otherwise, I will say a source told me, one of my listeners. I'll just do it like that, you know. I'm still going to give you the credit, but I can't give you. I'm not going to mention your name personally unless you say, you know, hey, mention my name personally in your broadcast, and then I'll say, well, Jane Doe said, this is where I got it from, and this is her source, blah 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 blah. Otherwise, I'll be if you say no, don't do that, then I'll be like, one of my listeners gave me this source. I apologize. This is correct. So, because I believe in giving credit, um, and not taking credit for something that I didn't do. Um, so, anyways, have a wonderful and blessed rest of your day. Bye bye.